Welcome to Slave Trade Narratives, the Elizabeth Donnen Project. I'm your host, DATWORK, and in this series we're going to take a deep and reflective journey through one of the most overlooked yet profoundly important collections of historical documents ever compiled about the transatlantic slave trade. Whether this is your first time engaging in the history of slavery in the Americas, or you're coming back to deepen your understanding, you're in the right place. Let's begin by asking a simple but vital question. Who was Elizabeth Donnen, and why does her work matter? Elizabeth Donnen was an American economic historian who in the 1930s published a 4-volume collection titled Documents Illustrative of the History of the Slave Trade to America. What makes her work extraordinary is not just the depth of the research, but her meticulous effort to compile first-hand accounts, merchant logs, colonial records, and governmental debates surrounding the slave trade from the 17th to the 19th centuries. She wasn't a storyteller in the traditional sense. Instead, she was a curator of voices, many of them troubling, chilling, and brutally honest. And through those voices, we're given one of the clearest archival windows into the mechanics and mentalities that sustained the system of slavery in the Western Hemisphere. But let me be clear, this is not an easy listen. We'll be confronting deeply uncomfortable truths. Truths about how Black bodies were commodified, transported, bought, sold, and rationalized as property by empires, colonies, and private enterprise alike. These narratives presented in Donnen's collections are not sanitized for comfort. They are raw with contradictions. Dehumanizing language standing next to human suffering. Economic justification next to familial separation. And legal records masking what are, at their core, crimes against humanity. So why does this matter today, in 2025? Because history is not just what happened, it's how what happened continues to shape us. The transatlantic slave trade wasn't a tragic footnote in Western history. It was a foundational enterprise that built nations, altered economies, reshaped continents, and fractured millions of lives across generations. The aftershocks of this system are still with us, in systemic racism, economic disparities, and cultural trauma. Yet most people, even those well-educated in other areas, have never heard of Elizabeth Donnen. Her name isn't taught in high school history classes. Her volumes aren't found on bestseller lists. And that's precisely why this podcast exists. To bring her work back into the public conversation and to make her archive come alive. Not just as data or documents, but as testimony. Each episode of this series will focus on a different chapter or theme from Donnen's volumes. I will personally summarize the content, contextualize it historically, and bring out key voices, be they enslaved Africans, ship captains, traders, abolitionists, or political officials. And when possible, I'll connect these historical moments to the world we live in now. This isn't a passive listening experience. It's an invitation to reflect, to reckon, and to reimagine. To think about what it means to confront a past that was deliberately buried or distorted. To consider how archival voices, many of whom were never meant to be heard or remembered, can speak across time and demand our attention today. You might be wondering, why trust Donnen's documents? After all, she's a white scholar working in a segregated America. That's a valid question, and one we'll revisit. What's important to understand is that Donnen didn't invent these stories. She collected them. She sifted through government archives, ship manifests, court proceedings, and colonial correspondence, documenting what people of the time said and did. She gave us the receipts, so to speak. What we do with them, that's our responsibility. You'll hear the name of Adahu, the captured African who spoke with Prince Henry's men and changed the course of Portuguese exploration. You'll learn about captains who resisted the slave trade and others who leaned into its horrors with chilling pride. You hear about the ways enslaved people fought back, survived, and preserved their humanity in the face of unimaginable brutality. And through it all, Donan's documents offer a mosaic of history that demands we see the full picture, not just the parts that make us comfortable. So whether you're listening while commuting, at home, or walking through a museum of your own thoughts, I hope this podcast encourages you to slow down and consider, what do we really know about how America and the Americas were built? Whose stories have been ignored? And what might it mean to honor them now? Let's begin.